Hey there, Kelsey here. Hey, most people think growth happens by pushing themselves harder, by pushing outside of their comfort zone, taking bigger risks, and forcing change. But what I have observed as a licensed therapist is that real sustainable growth does not happen that way. It happens in a much more specific manner. If you've been following along, then you saw in the last video that we talked about how growth can disrupt your sense of belonging and how internal belonging becomes really important for sustainable expansion. Before we go deeper into that next week, there's something that we want to understand first, which is how growth actually happens in the nervous system. And before we go further, I want to just pause and define what it is that I mean by growth. Because most people think of growth as doing more, achieving more, becoming better, basically becoming a more efficient, high functioning version of yourself. But most people have already experienced some level of that kind of growth. They have taken on more responsibility. They have stepped into new roles. They've adapted to what life has required of them, which, to be fair, is something human beings are very good at. We can adapt to almost anything, sometimes a little too well. However, this is what I'm talking about when I say role expansion. Role expansion can certainly build a life, but what we're talking about in an embodied identity expansion is self-expansion. Becoming someone who can set boundaries, who can stay present in difficult conversations or take care of themselves without guilt, maybe maintain healthy relationships or just make decisions that are actually aligned with who they truly are. Which for a lot of people feels significantly harder than managing careers, relationships, and everyone else's needs combined. Role expansion builds a life. Self-expansion is what allows you to actually live it and enjoy it. This is where another important distinction comes in. So a lot of the growth people have experienced in their life is something that I call survival growth. It's growth driven by pressure, expectations, or just out of necessity. You grow because you have to, which is why a lot of people are incredibly capable, but also completely exhausted. Survival growth can take you so far in life, but it doesn't always make your life feel aligned. And again, this is what we're talking about here is aligned growth. Growth that comes from internal truth, not just external demand. Because people can grow into roles without growing into themselves. And this is where understanding the nervous system becomes really important. Growth lives in a very specific place. It's somewhere between stagnation over here and overwhelm. On one side, you have stagnation, where things feel familiar, predictable, safe, but there's no real movement and we get stuck in old patterns. On the other side, there's overwhelm, where you stretch so far beyond your system that it triggers anxiety, shutdown, even collapse. And most people unknowingly bounce or kind of yo-yo back and forth between these two extremes. They either say too comfortable or they push themselves so far that their system pushes back. It's like, I'm going to change my entire life this week. And then 3 days later, your nervous system says, absolutely not. Growth does not happen at the edge of your willpower. It happens at the edge of your nervous system's capacity. Your nervous system has a range of what it perceives as safe and tolerable. And when you move just beyond that range, not too far, but just enough, you begin expanding it. That is what I mean when I talk about calibrated discomfort or calibrated expansion. It's not about avoiding discomfort. It's about finding the level of discomfort that your system can actually integrate, which is a lot less dramatic and a lot more effective. I'm curious, have you ever noticed yourself doing one of these two things? Either staying in what feels safe but stuck, or pushing so far beyond that you end up overwhelmed and shutting down or quitting. When discomfort is calibrated, your system can stay present. It can process the experience. It can learn this is new, but it's survivable. And then over time, that becomes, hey, this is familiar and this is a part of who I am now. And that is how identity expands. But when the stretch is too much, the system doesn't expand, it contracts and it goes into protection mode. And then people misinterpret this. They think, oh, I failed. I'm not enough. I'm not ready. I can't handle this. When in reality, your nervous system just said, that was a bit aggressive. Or maybe it was just that the growth wasn't wrong, but that it wasn't calibrated. Or something else may have happened, but we're going to get into that next week. Okay, so growth isn't about doing more, pushing harder, or forcing change. It's about learning how to work with your nervous system instead of against it. And this is exactly where that something else that I just mentioned earlier becomes really important. Because the question then becomes, what actually allows the nervous system to safely expand? What helps it to stay regulated while stretching into something new and unfamiliar? That's where internal belonging comes in. And that's exactly what we're going to explore more deeply in next week's video. Because sustainable growth isn't about becoming someone completely different overnight. It's about gradually expanding what feels safe, familiar, and possible until the person you're becoming actually starts to feel like you. If this resonates with you, I would love to hear your experience, okay? Do you feel that you've experienced more survival growth or maybe aligned growth? Or have you had moments where something stretched you in a way that truly felt sustainable and long-lasting? Feel free to share in the comments below. I'd love to hear your stories. And if you're interested in this work, do stick around. Each week, we're continuing to unpack the different layers of embodied identity expansion and what it really takes to grow in a way that your system can sustain. I'm also taking a few new clients right now. So if you're interested in working together, you can check out my website at 46and2therapy.com, and I'll also link it below.